Greetings to you all in the most precious name of our soon coming Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Thank you for tuning into this video where we are continuing to study the Gospel of Mark. In this video, we will continue looking at chapter 5 and we will look at verse 1 to 20. In our previous video, we saw that Jesus calmed the sea and rebuked the storm. In this video, we will look at how he will show his authority over demonic forces of nature. In our previous video, we saw that Jesus did his miracle in the Sea of Galilee. And then in chapter 5 verse 1, we see that he reaches this place known as Gerasenes. This was a Gentile region, and we see its proof in the fact that we have herdsmen who took care of pigs and reared them. Pigs were unclean as far as the Jewish people were concerned, and the Jews wouldn't even think of associating with an animal that was ritually unclean for them. So Jesus gets off the boat, and the first person to meet him in this land is a man with an unclean spirit. Mark describes this man to demonstrate the pathetic situation that this man is in. Number one, he has a home with a lot of friends in Decapolis. That's a fact that we understand from verse 19 and 20 of this passage. He has a home and he has a lot of friends in Decapolis. Yet at this time, he lives in the tombs. He lives in graveyards. That's the first fact about this man. The second fact is that he was uncontrollable. No one could bind him with a chain. Why? People tried multiple times to bind him with a chain, as we read in verse 4. But he wrenched them apart and broke the shackles in pieces. This tells us of the superhuman strength that was present in this demon-possessed man. The demons were numerous and they gave him supernatural powers that he could break chains just like that. The third thing about him is that no one possessed the strength needed to subdue him. The fourth fact about him, night and day he was among the tombs. He was finding his rest among the area that was used for burial. The fifth characteristic of this man is he used to inflict self-harm upon himself. He used to cut himself with stones. The sixth thing about him is he used to stay naked while he lived among the tombs. The seventh thing about him is he was not in his right frame of mind. A fact that we see about him in verse 15. Mark 5 verse 15 records that he was previously not in his right frame of mind. So this is the pathetic situation about this man, to say the least. Here we have a demon-possessed man who was uncontrollable, insane, self-inflicting harm, unclothed, etc. All of this has happened because of the demon possession that this man is going through. Now let's ask ourselves a question. Who are demons or evil spirits? The Bible teaches us that demons or evil spirits are angelic beings, invisible creatures that were created good by God, but since Satan chose to rebel against God, one section of the angels followed Satan and they sinned. Now we read about this fact in Matthew's Gospel chapter 25. Let's take that passage in Matthew's Gospel chapter 25 and verse 31. Verse 41. Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels." So we understand from this passage in Matthew 25 verse 41 that the devil had a lot of angels who followed him. And those angels were the ones who sinned by following Satan, and God casts them into hell and commits them to chains and a gloomy darkness till judgment. So God has eternally condemned them. So these angelic beings, or the fallen angels, being the evil spirits, try to inflict more damage to other creatures that God has created. Demons seek to destroy God's creation. So this is one thing we need to understand in our minds. It is this endeavor of demons that Jesus has come to defeat. From this text, we can safely assume that as soon as Jesus set foot at Gerasenes, he sees the man and immediately tells him to come out of this man, you unclean spirit. We see about that in verse 8. So let's read verse 8. Mark 5, verse 8 for all of us. Mark 5, verse 8 reads like this. For he was saying to him, come out of the man, you unclean spirit. So we can assume that Jesus was continuously saying to this evil spirit, come out of the man. And that is why these demons were threatened. Now we read in verse 6 that the man came and fell down before Jesus, crying, what have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? That's what we read in verse 6. He saw Jesus from afar and he ran and fell down before Jesus. The evil spirit in the man clearly knows who Jesus is. It clearly knows the fact that Jesus, who is God, has complete, absolute control over the demon. So on a side note, I just want to say this. Knowing that Jesus is God is not belief that leads to life. Submission to Jesus as God based on this knowledge and a practical outworking of obedience is the real proof of true faith. The demons know who Jesus is, but their actions are all about rebellion and against God. And so this knowledge about God isn't something that's going to save them. So this positive obedience to Jesus and a practical outworking of that obedience is missing in this set of demons that are present in this man. They know that Jesus is the Son of God, the Son of the Most High, yet they don't submit to him in an obedient pattern. Also, the demons say one more thing. I adjure you by God, do not torment me. That's what we read in verse 8. I adjure you, verse 7. I adjure you by God, do not torment me. So what exactly is torment in this passage? Evil spirits find their satisfaction in destroying God's creation by dwelling in them and causing them to self-destruct and inflict damage. To drive evil spirits out from someone would rob them of a dwelling place that they seek to destroy. They need bodies to indwell and destroy. That is what evil spirits are having as an agenda. And this is why these evil spirits request Jesus not to torment them by sending them out of this person. They want some body to dwell in. So we must understand that evil spirits possessing people is not something that God is unaware of or that he doesn't know of. He has allowed everything that is evil to happen. So even these evil spirits indwelling in this person is allowed by God. This is something that God allowed to happen. So why did he allow this? The answer is to show his dominion over demons. Just as you can only see the moon and the stars within the background of darkness, so it is with this. The power and authority of Jesus can only be clearly seen within the background of sin and all of its consequences. So the demon-possessed man names himself as Legion. Verse 9. The word legion was a largest unit of the Roman army, consisting of a number of 6,000 soldiers to a maximum. So that doesn't mean that there were 6,000 demons in this person. It rather meant that there were a large number of demons in this man. A sufficient number of demons that are enough for this man to display superhuman strength. The demons dread of having no place to dwell, and that is why we see that they beg Jesus, send us to the pigs. Let us enter them. If not humans, give us animals. That's what they said. So Jesus gave them permission. A healthy assumption is that Jesus gave the evil spirits the permission to dwell and trouble the man. And once Jesus has fulfilled the purpose of showing his dominions by driving the evil spirits off the man, he gives them permission to enter the pigs. Now we see that the demon-possessed pigs now rushed down the steep bank into the sea and drowned. We see that God didn't allow the evil spirits to end the life of the man, whereas he allowed the evil spirits to kill the pigs that they possessed. Again, it's a demonstration of God's sovereign power so that his will is done. The herdsmen who took care of these pigs, they report this in the city and the country, and the people came to see what happened. And what did they see? They saw the previously demon-possessed person sitting clothed and in his right mind, totally different from what they used to see him. So the application that I would bring out in this section is this: the saving work of God that awakens us out of the dead. It brings us out of destruction and leads us to a sober mind, so that we realize the previously destructive state that we were in and the present peaceful state that God has brought us to. In other words, God's saving work brings us out of the destructive areas that we were in and helps us to see how wretched and how bad we were. And the reaction of the people to this incident was that they were afraid. They got to know what happened and they begged Jesus to depart from this region. Their reaction is really surprising because they were afraid of the healing of the demon-possessed person. Actually, it should be the other way around. An ideal reaction would be that they should be afraid of what they were seeing this man do earlier. They should have been afraid of this man who was possessed earlier. It seems that they saw demon possession as normal and had no problem with it. The people's main problem was that if Jesus continued his work there, they would lose more of their animals and livelihood. And seeing their reaction, Jesus decides to go back, and as he gets back to the boat, the man who was previously demon possessed, he begs to be with Jesus, but Jesus refuses. Why? Jesus tells him to go back home, tell everyone what the Lord has done for him. Even though Jesus is forbidden to stay any longer in the area, he now has a witness whom he has transformed. And he, the previously demon possessed person, he will be a living testimony to what Jesus has done. So Jesus' method of successful missions that can be effective. Let me give you a few lessons from this passage before I close this video. Lesson number 1. Jesus, who is God, exercises complete control over nature. Demons, that's evil spirits, were good creation of God, but they chose to rebel against God and his authority. They tried to be rivals and try to destroy God's creation, but they are no match for God's authority and sovereignty. Second lesson: evil spirits operate in this sin stricken world with the permission of God, even though they work against God. This is something we need to realize here. However, God permits them to operate so that God's saving work is revealed. Demons are mere puppets or pawns in the hands of God, as God uses everything to His glory and the furtherance of His kingdom. God limits their use of dominion so that God's purposes are fulfilled. Just like Jesus controls the demons' actions in avoiding the killing of the person and His allowance in letting the demons kill the pigs. The third thing we need to realize as a lesson here is the saving work that God accomplishes in a fallen world helps a sinner to understand that the pre-born again state is a very pathetic one in which we have absolutely no hope. All that is there is destruction and an experience of hell. This is what life without God looks like. A life without God is pathetic and there is no hope. And when God miraculously and graciously leads a sinner from the realms of sin and trespasses to a living hope that gives a sober mind, that sinner starts to see how wretched he was, and he will begin to appreciate God's grace towards him. Lesson number 4. We are driven to understand that Jesus went into the Gentile area to search for this man. Jesus seems intentional in his approach in searching for him and healing him. This is what missions looks like. We should be intentional in our approach as we deal with people who are in need of the gospel. Lesson number 5. We understand that demons know who Jesus is and even submit to his permission to possess anyone. But merely knowing that Jesus is God is not saving faith that leads to life. Even if one shudders at the knowledge of God, if they still continue existing to rebel against God and being away from God, they are not in a relationship with God. Such a state is not a characteristic of a true saving faith with God. The next and the final lesson that I would want to bring to you is this. In this passage, Jesus gives a mission strategy that is wise for us to follow. After Jesus heals the man, Jesus faces opposition, and instead of going against that opposition, Jesus chooses to take a step back. Sometimes we are also required to take a step back when there is an increasing opposition to our ministry. Also, Jesus prohibits the man from following him. Instead, Jesus tells him to go back to his family and friends, show them the difference that has come upon him as a result of Jesus' work. So, even though Jesus is not getting into this land to do his ministry, Jesus is gaining an access first to the legion's home and family first. They will see the marvelous change that has happened. Next, he will have to narrate the experience with his friends. So the work starts from the man's family and then it goes on to friends. So that is what we see happening here. So instead of Jesus doing the work, he uses the testimony of the healed man to witness in the whole area of Decapolis. The next time we meet this place, Decapolis, we read about that place in chapter 7 verse 31. We read there that the people of Decapolis brought a sick man to Jesus. So why did the people who earlier begged Jesus to go out, why do they bring that sick man to Jesus? Because the whole area of that man, the whole area in which that man stayed, they all knew that Jesus is powerful through the witness of this person. So, here are three applications that I want to bring out from this point. God places us in places as witnesses so that people will see the change that comes on us by the saving work of God. Second, we can never fake that change. Only a genuine change from being a sinner to a saint will attract others to Jesus Christ. That change is life transforming because God has produced it. The third application, one thing we can do to reach families and villages as part of our ministries is focusing on individuals through whom we can reach a larger group. This method is safe to use even when we have increasing opposition. So, with that being said, we are concluding this video, and I hope we will all be blessed by whatever we have heard. May God's name be praised.